Gentlemen, it's Beatty. Today we're going to do something a little different, but it's pretty important, and I might butcher it a bit because I'm just learning about this subject. But essentially, I've started looking into psychology and evolutionary psychology to understand why people are the way they are, and if I can understand why you guys think a certain way about yourself, I can help you get past your insecurities faster than penis enlargement. So, the first concept we need to talk about is something called default mode network. And essentially, this is the background task manager of your brain. It takes all your assumptions, boils them down to quick, fast responses. So that way, you don't have to spend a bunch of brain power constantly thinking about decisions. This is what gives you your descriptive attitude. So oh, I'm clumsy, oh, I'm attractive, oh, I'm dumb, whatever. That's what's going to hold all your assumptions. Now, these assumptions are ingrained from previous experiences, particularly when you're young, because you haven't experienced anything yet, so you develop these assumptions, even though as you grow and mature, those assumptions may not last. For example, I was the chubby kid. I was also the scrawny kid after a growth spurt. The scrawny period of my life had the most impact on my default mode network because it was during my formative teenage years. So I felt scrawny until I got well beyond 200 pounds because I had to basically trick my brain into thinking I was not scrawny. How that applies to men suffering from size insecurity, let's say they started watching porn at a very young age. They were comparing themselves to well-endowed adults while they were prepubescent, comparing themselves to their non-fully developed selves. So naturally, there's going to be a huge size discrepancy. That size discrepancy gets ingrained in their brain, and then they start thinking to themselves, wow, I must be really tiny. But as they continue to develop into an adult, their penis could actually end up being well above average and still feel small. That's the default mode network because they never actively challenged their default mode network to change these thought processes. And another thing with the default mode network is it's kind of stagnant. So even if you have a bunch of positive experiences after the default mode network is set, it still takes a lot more work, mostly awareness that it's being challenged, to actually overcome it. So it's not one woman saying you have a big dick is not going to change the fact. It is going to need to be fully internalized rather, to become fact to your brain. So the first thing you need to do is learn statistics. And I know there's a hot button debate, but we'll just say there's a range between 5.25 and just under 6 inches on the average. If you are in that range, you are average. Yeah, there's a lot of us that are so hyper-competitive we can't handle being average, but 50% of the world is going to be less than that size. You're doing fine, okay? Second, when you feel these thoughts, ask if they are true. The answer most of the time is no. It's the reality. The important thing is that you challenge them every time. Because if you let this default mode network continuously set the rules, if you will. So if it continuously sets the rules, you're not going to be able to change the rules. It takes a lot of work and it takes a lot of self-awareness. So you can slowly work on it passively, and that's what I've done. You can also try active meditations on why the way you think you are. Personally, I don't meditate that often. It's more like I meditate in the gym because my mind can actually go blank. But there are many forms of meditation. You got to look into the subject a little more. But essentially that allows you to clear out all of your anxieties. Focus on the actual issues at hand. A lot of you guys also have relationship trauma dealing with penis size. And that can come into actually two different issues with the default mode network. If you're hurted by a female that you trust often. So let's say your mom was not a great mom, and then your first girlfriend belittled you and manipulated you. You are definitely going to start having deep-seated issues with all women, because the first two women that you trust became kind of sinister in your mind. And that's going to take a lot of work to get over. And I'm not really going to get into that because I'm not a psychiatrist, but it's something to be aware of, that because you've had quite a few bad experiences, particularly with someone close to you, it's going to manifest itself in like a form of hatred towards people you don't even know. And that's when it starts getting unhealthy with the default mode network. And that's why you need to be aware of it. But when it comes to our primary subject, penis size, let's be real, there are some very manipulative people in this world. They will say anything to make you lower your self-esteem and then easier to control. So, like today, there was the post talking about how this guy was about 7 inches by like 5.5 inches. So like objectively a big dick. All right. But he had a few girlfriends say he was small. There's no statistical way he was small. But since two women that were trying to manipulate his thought process to make him feel lesser of himself, therefore easier to get what they want out of him, made him believe that way, even though he's relatively well endowed, he still thinks he's small because someone that he trusted said he was small. And Hank, actually, my business partner's like evil origin story, he calls it, has very similar things where he hooked up with a few women. He's a large black man, so they're expecting a horse. He was only 7 by 5, still objectively big, but he would get this comment a lot, though I was expecting bigger. Meanwhile, they were struggling to handle him as he was currently. Okay, so I'm not saying women are all evil. I'm just saying some people are literally just designed to manipulate people and make them feel worse about themselves. So either they feel better about themselves, or they can control them easier. And that comes, like, honestly, depends on how they were raised, and some people are just fucking evil. But at the same time, you can find some very supportive women and men, all kinds of people. You just have to surround yourself with them. And something I've also noticed is that a lot of guys end up getting targeted by these manipulative people. So, and it tends to be the ones that are a little more anxious and uptight, because it's just, you can just easily see that they have an insecurity that you can target. And that way, that insecurity of theirs, you can easily manipulate, because it's just an attack vector, if you will. A lot of the times, the people that are most susceptible to these attacks are the people that are going to be damaged most by these attacks, because they're already so anxious and uptight. And you need to first be aware of your own weaknesses. I used to be a nervous, uptight guy, and depending on my workload, I can slowly work up to it. But you gotta let yourself know that opens you up for attacks and pain, just because it makes it easy for you to be manipulated. On the other side of the same coin, though, if you have this big male bravado and ego, again speaking from experience, it makes you very easy to manipulate too, because all they have to do is say, oh, you're not that impressive, and then it's off to the races, right? Speaking from experience. So, again, all that is controlled by the default mode network. If you do not have a good grasp of what's going on under your own hood, it just makes it very easy for you to fall into these bad thought patterns and then be easily manipulated by others that want to do you harm. Okay, before I get really out of scope for this video, I'm going to end it there. So the default mode network is something I just want you guys to be aware of. If you're looking for more information, so there's this YouTube channel that I've been listening to while I'm doing orders and all that jazz, called Healthy Gamer GG, and it's a licensed medical and mental health professional that explains the science of psychology, psychiatry, and then things you can do to slowly work yourself out of these holes. It is a little bit of a gamer skew, but I'm assuming a lot of you guys play video games, And even if you don't play video games, it's very easy to follow along. It's just some of the slang he uses to explain things might go over your head. But I really like that channel. Dr. K has been basically in my ear for about an hour every day, just as I learn more and more about this stuff. And that's where I learned about the default mode network. So if you're trying to get your mind right, I would say check out his channel. Hopefully he doesn't find his way to me. Actually, it might be cool. We'll see what happens. But he has millions of subs. I have tens of thousands. Not even tens of thousands. I have 10,000. One unit. So, good. Anyway, I doubt anything is ever going to happen between me and him. But I still think he talks about things that affect young men predominantly that they need to hear, and so that way they don't end up going down the wrong path. Anyway, no sponsor spots this time because I just wanted to chat and try out my new microphone. So, let me know in the comments what you think. I guess like and subscribe too. This is BD. I'll see you in the next one.